I'm Michael Mullers and I'll be your host to explain how to use file outputs on mintBlue. To send a file output, we need to prepare the outputs array. Next, we can send the transaction to the mintBlue platform for final storage on the Bitcoin blockchain. And finally, I want to verify my transaction via the mintBlue console to make sure it has been successful. So, what is a file output? You can use file outputs to publish a file's contents in its buffer format on the blockchain. Storing files is useful to ensure the immutability and permanence of important documents and media files. Optionally, you can protect sensitive information by encrypting the file output with your secret key. Other users can explore any data you store on the Bitcoin blockchain. Therefore, to store sensitive information, we must encrypt the transaction details to hide it from others. Alright, let's get coding. Here you can see the file output interface. In our case, it's mandatory to include the type property, which indicates the file output type. Further, you can store the file's contents in the value property. The value property expects a content type, which is a MIME type. The content property expects a buffer. And lastly, the transaction is signed and encrypted by default. If you don't want to do this, you can set these booleans to false. Now, let's look at a code example showing how to create file outputs within a mintBlue transaction. Okay, let's create our index.js file and let's copy the base code from the SDK Getting Started tutorial. Further, we have to prepare the outputs array, which contains one object, and the type will be set to file. The value property contains a content type, which you can set to a MIME type. We will set it to the text/plain MIME type, and the content will be set to a buffer. We will use a string order 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're ready to send the transaction to mintBlue, and let's extrapolate the transaction ID. And later, let's print the transaction ID to our terminal. Okay, let's execute the node command to verify if the code is correct. And if it prints our what's on chain transaction ID, the transaction has succeeded. Okay, let's validate our transaction by going to the projects tab and then selecting our file output project or whatever name you gave it. Here we go to the transactions section and you can see our file output transaction has been included. So if you click the view button, you will see the transaction details. And here you will see the value in its buffer format, so you cannot actually read it. But if you would convert the buffer back to UTF-8 string, you will be able to read the content. And below you can also see a payment transaction, which is a change output from mintBlue, and you can safely ignore this output. Thank you for completing the how-to guide. You can find the full code at the bottom of the how-to page. If you want to learn more, check out the how-to guides for the other output types. Learn how to combine outputs and take a look at example applications to get a feel of how to implement mintBlue into real projects.